Peter Dutton can win this election with one promise made up of just 5 simple words. I will finish Mount Piper. What is Mount Piper? Well, what if I told you that there's 2 new coal-fired electricity generation turbines already approved with land cleared? All of the cooling water is supplied and all of the electricity transmission infrastructure is in place, completely 100% ready to begin construction on the turbines. And it's there because there were originally supposed to be 4 turbines built, but back in the day they decided to only build 2. But they prepared the site for the other 2. Everything is ready to go. So, if Peter Dutton wants to win the upcoming election, all he has to do is announce that he'll dust off the plans and get construction underway. Just promise to finish the Mount Piper power station. But he doesn't have the courage, because to do that would mean supporting coal, which is the obviously correct thing to do, but he would view it as too politically risky for an empty suit like him. Now, an important caveat to note before we get deeper into this video is that the plans for Mount Piper are from the 1980s. But you may have noticed that dirt is still here from the 80s. The infrastructure is still there, the land has been cleared and levelled, and it is still clear and level. Everything is 100% ready to go. The other 2 turbines on that site are operating as we speak. We could literally just dust off the plans, make upgrades for the improved technology which we have today, like more modern turbines which are more efficient and more powerful, and we can include the latest filtration technologies for the exhaust gases if you must. But hey presto, we can add somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 megawatts of cheap baseload capacity in just a few years' time. This is the fastest way possible to add serious baseload capacity in Australia, because most of the work has already been done. It is ready to go. And given that coal is still, to this day, the cheapest dispatchable electricity in Australia, dispatchable meaning it's power that's available when we need it, it's something like 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour, a number which renewables simply cannot compete with once you factor in the cost of making their intermittent energy dispatchable. Coal is the cheapest that we have, so we can be pretty confident that the numbers will stack up well over the life of these 2 new turbines. But if it's all so easy, why haven't we done it already? And why hasn't Dutton already seized on this as an election-winning promise tailor-made to save his ailing campaign? Well, for that we have only ourselves to blame. You get the government that you deserve. And if our Prime Minister and our opposition leader are both spineless cowards, well, that says a lot about us. My name's Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and I help busy people like yourself to understand the world as it changes around us. Now, I am 100% viewer supported. I don't have any advertisers or sponsors, and whilst I would happily have one if they were willing, for most advertisers I am way too spicy. So whilst I'm open to offers, I'm not expecting anyone's going to come knocking on my door anytime soon wanting to sponsor what I do. So instead, I'm counting on you to grab a copy of one of my best-selling books, or my award-winning DVD, or my super cool merch, including my t-shirts and my hoodies. But today I also want to mention something that I really don't talk about as often as I probably should, and that is my online masterclass called Getting Your Head in the Game. This masterclass is 6 sessions in total with more than 12 hours of content, and I dive into the key things that you can, and I would argue the things that you must take control of in your life in order to improve your future. And this includes your focus, hope, courage, about faith. Now, not just religious faith, but actually faith in each other and faith in ourselves, and what it means to live with faith in the future. I talk about community. And finally, I bring it all together and I talk about next steps, where we get practical about what you need to do in practical terms to put all of that into practice. The world is going mad, but that doesn't mean that you have to join them. It's about being able to direct your focus and your limited resources of time, attention, energy, and money into the places where it will actually make a difference for you, the people that you love, and the things that you care about. And it's also about knowing what to do with the things that you can't control. Having a framework, a way of assimilating that into your life without letting it all take over. Now, more than 50 people did the course with me when I first ran it. Greg said that the session on courage really resonated with him. Jenny said that it was brilliant, empowering her with valuable skills, and Bridget said that it was just brilliant information and super important realizations. Now, this is available for instant access at goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com, and the best part is that not only will you be helping yourself with a proactive approach to your life, your future, and the challenges that lie ahead, but you'll also be helping me to keep bringing you videos like this one. All right, back to it. You might be wondering why we didn't build these two coal turbines back in the 90s. If it's all so peachy and rosy, why didn't we build them when we were supposed to? In a nutshell, because back in the 90s we lacked the foresight to build them. And why haven't we built them since? Because this lack of foresight is not restricted to just the 1990s. The site in question, like I said, is the Mount Piper Power Station in New South Wales. Now, they opened Unit 2 in 1992, and just to confuse everybody, they opened Unit 1 a year later in 1993. But Units 3 and 4, they were never built. And a big part of the reason was because, well, for some strange reason, electricity demand was lower than had been forecast at that time. And in completely unrelated news, this was also the time that the Lima Agreement was taking effect. Weird, unrelated coincidence. There is no way that an agreement requiring Australia to import 25% of what had previously been our own industrial capacity and to import 25% of our food from poorer countries, even though, we were perfectly capable of growing our own, and, poorer countries could probably do with keeping their own food, but don't think too hard about it. It's just a purely unrelated coincidence that the implementation of the Lima Agreement coincided with the beginning of deindustrialization in Australia, and for completely unrelated reasons, there was a drop in electricity demand, which made it lower than forecast. All a weird coincidence. Thus, Units 3 and 4 at Mount Piper were never built because this was the beginning of a trend that later picked up momentum in the 2000s and even more recently, as emissions-related agreements then took force on top of the Lima Agreement and others. Now, these emissions-related agreements are actually just the offshoring of Australian industry. They make it expensive and difficult to make things here in this country, so we import finished things from other countries where it hasn't been made difficult and expensive. So when we export that industry, we just export the electricity consumption and we export the carbon dioxide emissions so that we can pretend that we're saving the world and what a good country we are, with very low CO2 emissions, whilst actually we're just exporting all of that to other countries that have fewer controls in place. And that is what scuppered Units 3 and 4 at Mount Piper. Now, low demand wasn't the only factor, but the bottom line is they shelved the plans for half of the turbines there, and thus half of the generation capacity at Mount Piper, not because the plans wouldn't work or because there was any actual problem, but because they didn't think it was worth it due to the low demand at the time. So why were they never picked up later? Well, energy demand did soar in the 90s and 2000s, but it's interesting to note that it's not like we weren't opening any new coal-fired power plants here in Australia. In fact, since Mount Piper was finished in the early 90s, Unit 1 commissioned in 93, 4 coal plants have opened in Queensland, plus 1 in Western Australia. But in New South Wales, in Victoria, in South Australia, no dice. By this point in time, the anthropogenic global warming scare had taken a hold, and a raft of new environmental considerations had shifted the goalposts considerably. An expansion of another 2,000 megawatts of either coal or gas power on that Mount Piper site was considered in 2010, but by 2013 the concept had stalled completely, killed by environmental fears and scuppered by our new obsession with renewables. New South Wales were not going to build 2 modest-sized turbines, despite the simply astonishing rise in coal and gas power globally. More than 1.5 terawatts of new coal or gas generation has been added globally since that Mount Piper Unit 3 and 4 were cancelled. And they were just 1,400 megawatts, meaning that if you do the math, finishing Mount Piper would have added less than 0.1% of just the new capacity which has been added since then. Australia, or more specifically New South Wales and Victoria, had it in their heads that they were going to single-handedly save the world from climate change by halting construction of all new coal, despite Australia being a rounding error in the global atmospheric CO2 contribution and being unable to make any measurable difference against the backdrop of a world which was accelerating the rate at which they were building coal and gas capacity. And in fact, the world is now building more new coal and gas capacity every year than Australia's entire electricity grid. So, that big, beautiful site, it still sits there. It was recently one of the centerpieces of Peter Dutton's nuclear plans, and at first glance that seems to make sense. It is a great site. The electricity transformation and hardware is already in place. Not to mention the cooling water, it's already been leveled and compacted. Why not build a nuclear power plant there? Why not? Because that site is perfect for coal. And coal is better because we can't afford to be waiting another 10 years for a nuclear power plant to be built on that site if we're lucky. Because let's not forget, there's going to be another 5 years lost. That's just because that's what it'll take to get the proposals through all the lawsuits that will come from all the green groups. No, if we're going to save Australia from itself, from unreliable and overpriced energy, then we are going to have to go back to the future. We are going to have to finish Mount Piper the way they intended for it to be, with 2 more coal-powered turbines. Dutton can retake the initiative in this election with this simple catch cry: finish Mount Piper. Yes, do it with the latest, cleanest burning coal furnaces and turbines that money can buy. Sure. Spend the money on filtration and fly ash processing to minimise environmental impact. Sure. But this is one of those rare moments where what makes the most sense politically is also what is best for the country. And we can't allow a moment like this to pass us by. We can take pressure off Australia's energy prices and shore up our increasingly unstable energy grid just by finishing what we started, just by recognising that whilst it may have made sense not to build those units in the 1990s, it is absolute madness not to build them in the 2020s. We don't need Albanese and Chris Bowen's intermittent renewable fantasy. Nor do we need nuclear in the never never. Maybe by 2040, after all the lawsuits are done. We need coal. And we need it fast. And nothing in Australia would be faster than to simply finish what we started in Mount Piper. Now, of course, the green carpetbaggers will be out in force. Oh, you can't do that. You need to get new approvals. We need to know exactly how this power plant will affect the lesser spotted newt habitat that we've magically found in the area. Have you done an Indigenous heritage survey on that land? You can't just dust off the old plans and build it. Yes, we can. And we must. And it would be a political masterstroke if Dutton simply made that promise. I will finish Mount Piper. Right now, Dutton's campaign is flailing for a lack of purpose, killed by self-inflicted wounds. What is it that Dutton truly stands for, that really sets him apart? What is he fighting for? What are we voting for if we vote for him? A slightly lighter shade of communism? Nuclear power plants in the never never? No. If Dutton is serious, if he wants to be a serious alternative, then he could promise to finish Mount Piper. Do it with coal, and do it within his term of government. Now that is a powerful promise in more ways than one. My name is Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and I help busy people like you to make sense of the world as it goes mad around you. I am 100% viewer supported, so please head over to goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com, buy my books, my merch, my DVD, and take a look at that Getting Your Head in the Game masterclass while you're there. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe, check out this recommended video while you're here, and as always, stay free.